Dr. Mandell, thank you again for taking time from your schedule to be with us to explore a great number of issues with us. And what's curious, as I've known of Faye's work, and I have followed her work and have had some conversations with her, here are the subject matters that she explores in one shape, form, or another. We're not going to be able to talk about all of these, but there are a great number that you should know the breadth of her interest and how she consolidates and synthesizes so much of this information to some very important, powerful expressions and strategies. But Faye is interested in EQ and IQ and mindfulness, self-powerment, empowerment, mental time travel, hope, fear, anxiety, achievement, possibilities, success, being in the moment, being in the zone, being present, being present. These are all concepts that have enormous value. And Faye, I know we can't talk about each and every one of those, but we know there are certain ones that are important for us to explore, to get out on the table. And with that as my introduction, please kind of help us understand the issues that and interests that we need to have as we pursue this line of thinking.
So the fundamental distinction that we have to make is the difference between a feeling and a thought. Our culture believes, back from when Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am," that thoughts are the power and that knowledge from intelligence, from the cognition, is where the value is. And the culture really has negatively charged feelings. They say that they're impulsive and they're histrionic and hysterical. They're not good. So they warn us and tell us in no uncertain terms not to pay attention to the feelings in your body. Yet thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body. And when you were born, you were given everything you need to know as to how to be a human. A cat knows how to be a cat. A lion knows how to be a lion. A monkey knows how to be a monkey. And we know how to be humans. But we were taught not to listen to the language that communicates how to be a human through feelings. So we run away from them, we avoid them because the culture has charged them negatively. When you think about something, you move in time. Therefore, thought by definition is only an abstraction of experience. So in the thought, since it's an abstraction, it takes the experience and mentally represents it, okay? So in that mental representation, you can put in all sorts of your own personal preferences. But in direct experience, when the mind is quiet and your attention is on what you are experiencing, then you know what is so. But I ask people, how much of their day, from 1% to 100%, do you spend thinking? And they say, oh, that's simple, about 98%, 97%. Sometimes we get 100%. And I say to them, is that your choice? Are you choosing to think about that? And they don't even know that they have a choice not to do that. And so I asked them to remember when they were children, when they didn't have the cognitive functioning that would allow them to think, because that doesn't develop for until you're in latency. Then you have, and you look and you spend time with children who are in direct experience. And that's, I remember once I was with a friend of mine's child, and I'm only 5 feet tall, so I was the only one that could get into the little tent that kids used to make, and all of the other adults were way too big. And I came into the tent, and the little girl was so happy that somebody was in her tent with her, and she gave me a hug, and she says, "Oh, Faye, you have a mustache." And Mom says, "You're not supposed to say that." And I said, "Why don't you say that? I have some hair on my lip. I take it off with, whatever stuff I take it off with, but it comes back all the time." And so she was just saying the truth. She wasn't saying anything negative or judgmental. She was just saying what her experience was of being with me. A, that she was thrilled that I was in the tent, and B, that I had a little mustache when I went to give her a hug. So to her, those were exactly the same thing. But to her mom, who said, "Oh, you're not supposed to say that, and that's not a nice thing to say," that was what she was learning about. She learned to make judgments and preferences and values, and that there is a continual tension between who you were born to be and who you learn to be. And one of the important things is that anything learned can be unlearned. That I got in Behavior Theory 101 in college. Anything learned can be unlearned. So you can unlearn what the forms that are in your mind tell you are important from your culture, and you can go back to what is on your DNA. And when you're on your DNA, then you return to the innocence with experience. So it's the experience that provides the wisdom.
So the important part of what we're exploring here is the importance of understanding that we can make choices. One of the gifts that we were given as human beings is a certain level of free will that other people would describe it as, but we would talk about it in psychology as having choices. And part of those choices are listening to parts of our brain that are sending us messages. And it's almost as though in our brain we have a parliament, we have a Congress. On one side, we have people arguing for this position. On the other side of our brain, we have others arguing for another position. It's who we're going to listen to, who we're going to empower in that case to give us the choice that's best for us. So, Faye, how do we know which part of those choices are in our best interests?
So thought is the language of the brain, and feelings is the language of the body. The body is created so that you can survive and propagate. Those are two basic instincts. So the body's job is to have you at your best, moment by moment by moment, that your cells are functioning at their best, that your organs are functioning at their best, and it gives you information about how to do that moment by moment by moment. I wanted to say one thing that I believe is the most fundamental, that the most important choice that we have as human beings is where to put our attention. People don't even know that they have the capacity to choose. The attention goes immediately to the cognition. The cognition is not friendly anymore. When they gave it to us on the DNA, thought was to be creative and innovative in the moment. That's what thought was for. But it got usurped by feelings, because since we can't pay attention to the feelings, they have to get discharged. And so they piggyback themselves on like a horseback rider on a horse and get discharged that way. So thoughts are no longer used for the purpose that they were given to us. And what the exciting part of this whole thing is that we can choose not to pay attention to them. But we don't even know that. And that's what my whole model is all about, is that you can come to a place where you have total awareness of where you want to put your attention. And you want to put your attention on the language of feelings, because that's the information from the body that's going to keep you healthy and vital, and make you eat the right food so that you can, you can sustain your immune system. I was just talking to somebody who said that vitamin A is a great way to sustain your immune system. Why doesn't anybody talk about that on television? Why don't they tell people to take vitamin A? Because this is the coronavirus is an immune system, a virus that attacks your immune system. So
it's curious. I think we learned in our basic biology classes this idea of homeostasis.
yes,
That we're trying to find balance, right? And sometimes we ignore what our body is designed to do. And what our body is designed to do is to find this homeostasis, this sense of balance, that things are in synchronization, to allow us to do the one thing that the rest of the animal kingdom or all other living organisms aren't allowed to do. And you said it so beautifully. You said we're designed, our bodies are designed to come into this world to do two things. One is survive. We share that with all the other all the other living organisms. So we're supposed to survive. Once we come to this world as a living organism, we're supposed to survive. The second thing we're supposed to do is reproduce. We're supposed to carry on our life form in some shape. And then that's where we differ from the rest of the life forms. What we have the ability to do is to thrive.
yes,
And it seems to me what you're discussing here is paying attention to the survival side, to the thriving side of us, and coming up with a strategy that allows us to make those good choices.
yes.
And part of making those good choices is understanding how our feelings translated into thoughts, translated into action, really becomes a formula for mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of walk us through that a little bit more? Because I think it really is quite fascinating.
So feelings are information from the body to let you know the membrane of every cell that you have has an intelligence, and it senses things, and it says, this is good for you, go forward, this is bad for you, go away from it. And it's giving you that information because there are trillions of cells, moment by moment by moment. It's also simultaneously going into your DNA and picking the codes and the algorithms that will create right action for that moment. So really, truly, that experience is memorialized in thought, because thought is always about something that has happened. So it's always about a past experience and you extrapolating from it your experience of that experience. Do you see what I mean? So the whole idea is that those membranes give you information about maintaining homeostasis. So let's say the blood pressure for most people is between 110 and 130. If you're in that range, then you're okay. So if it goes to 135, the membranes say, don't do what you're doing, because it's going to keep you out of range of being the best you're capable of being. And it does that because that's what the body is designed to do. This is not a great aha. This is why we have a body. It's to have experiences and to let us know through those experiences what's good for us and what we need to survive, and what's bad for us and what we need to go away from. So that happens, and then thought brings a mental representation of that, and it comes in the form of thought. And then you have, you always go, when you think about something, it's always about something. So it cannot be the direct experience. So when you're thinking, you're not experiencing, and when you're experiencing, you're not thinking. Both thought and experience or feelings have a very different kind of information that they give to you. Thought gives you information or data, these little data bits that you get. Feelings and experience give you information or pattern. So when your mind is quiet and you're in direct experience, you have an entirely different database with which to get wisdom. So you have a choice at that matter. Do you focus on leaving the moment to think, or do you stay in the moment and experience? and when you're experiencing from pattern, and pattern is scalable and repeatable and provides a whole different experience of wisdom and knowledge than when you're coming from information or data bits. So
yeah, and I think we see it in our work, especially in this concept of mental time travel, which would be defined in your terms of those thoughts, which can be dangerous in their own right, because the way the brain processes its future, it first looks to the past because that's what it experienced. So it has a lot of information it can draw from the past, and very little information it can expect in the future because it hasn't experienced the future yet.
that's right.
If those experiences in the past, those thoughts that come from the past, which is a powerful way of explaining it, and thank you for that. If those experiences from the past are negative, my inclination then is to use that information to define my future, and therefore my future will be negative.
Absolutely.
And within that intersection becomes this idea that maybe I can choose a different path. So if I'm not good in math in the past, and I don't give up, I actually understand that I can make a choice to maybe spend a little bit more time understanding mathematical concepts, practicing my math. It's similar to what we say: if you're not good at making free throws on a basketball court, what's the first thing you do? Is you practice free throws. If you're not good in math, the first thing you do is sometimes give up on math versus practicing math. So it becomes that conscious choice again, doesn't it?
Right. Well, I had an experience where, in order to get my Ph.D., I had to take advanced statistics. And that was a real problem for me because I have trouble adding. So I said to myself, how could I ever do advanced statistics if I can't add? So I went to the teacher at the very beginning of the semester, and I said that I described my problem. He said, "Hey, you don't have to have the right answer. The calculator can do that. In order to understand statistics, you have to understand why you're doing the procedure that you're doing. It's not about the arithmetic." And I said, "Really?" I got an A in the course because the concepts of statistics make absolute sense, but the addition, since I am not a person who's detailed, so I'll write a 7 if it, and maybe it's supposed to be a 4, so I'm not as focused on details as your assistant was when we were dealing with the precursor of this meeting, because she found a spelling mistake in 1,000,000 words. I mean, that's a remarkable thing for me to experience somebody doing that. But he was able to allow me to understand why each statistical procedure was being performed. And that was fascinating to me, and that was interesting to me. So he reframed it for me. And I believe a lot of what happens in the world can be reframed. So instead of seeing what's wrong with things, we can see what's right with things, and how to create resources, and how to have infinite possibilities, because that's what you're born with. You're born with infinite possibilities, moment by moment by moment.
And when you talk about infinite possibilities, you also will use the word potential, right?
Yes.
So those infinite possibilities are defined as our potential, and our potential is then defined as our willingness to be in the moment, to explore what it is that we can be, not what we've learned to be, or I think the way you say it is better than that, not what we've learned to be, what we're supposed to be. So talk to us about the difference between what we learn to be, and then what we're actually supposed to be. What does our DNA have in store for us to access those infinite possibilities and realize a good part of our potential?
Yes. So the culture has taken on a very toxic responsibility, which is to create what's valuable. And they do that through advertising and through the kinds of products that they develop and make, et cetera, and so forth. And so we learn, and those learnings are housed in forms in our brain and in our cognition. So in the mind is the place where the values of the culture are held. In the DNA is the place where the natural values are held. And the natural values recognize one extraordinarily important fundamental thing, and that is that we're all connected. So that if I do anything to hurt you, I'm really actually hurting me as well. So why would I do such a thing? That just doesn't make any sense. So the idea is to get back to listening and paying attention to what our DNA says about us, because a cat behaves like a cat and a lion behaves like a lion. A lion doesn't behave like a giraffe. It would never survive because it can't get up to those tall trees, nor can a giraffe run as fast as a lion so that they can get the animal that they're chasing. So the point I'm trying to make is the DNA is, it allows us to experience what it is like to be a human. And what it's like to go in the morning and watch the sunrise and just feel the awesome experience in your body of how vast everything is. When people have a scarcity mode, which they're having right now, I ask them always to image the tulips in Holland as they bloom right now. They're blooming right now. There's so many. How could you not know that nature is abundant? Scarcity is a concept that's learned and then manifest.
So how do you know how do you know what's talking to you? How do you know when your DNA is talking to you, when your DNA is saying, you know how to be a human, listen to those feelings. And then how do you know when you're getting false information from your thoughts? How do you judge that?
Yeah, because thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body.
Right.
So what we have to do is we have to take our attention, since we have that choice, which we just talked about, off of the thoughts and put it onto the feelings. You have that choice. The problem is we're addicted to the thoughts. I told you 98 people say that 90% of the day they're thinking. So when they're thinking, you can't hear the feelings. And the feelings are the information from the body, which allows you to be human. Because when you're in the present moment and you're in direct experience, there are only two options: to succeed or learn. That's it. There's no such F word there, failure word. And so that doesn't exist in nature. It just doesn't. You succeed or you learn.
So if I'm not succeeding in the goals that I've established for myself, then what I have to recognize is that even if I make mistakes, if I make bad choices, those are still learning opportunities for me.
They are the learn. You can't learn unless you make a mistake. If you know it, you're going to succeed. So the only other option is learning. There was a wonderful quote that said, if you can't open the door, it's not your door. You can't keep trying to open the door. It's just not your door. Try another door. Try a cave. Try a bridge. Try something else. But don't continue. Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Don't keep trying the same door. Try something different.
So we were given the gift, like our feelings. So we know what feelings look like. So talk to us. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about defining a certain number of feelings. Is anger a feeling? Is frustration a feeling? Is joy a feeling? Kind of talk to us about what those feelings are, and then the thoughts that those specific feelings can create that may be detrimental to us.
So I'm going to talk about three basic feelings, because those are the ones that every feeling has an action inherent in it. Everyone. And so if you just listen to the feelings and do the action, then the feeling will dissipate. So the three feelings that I'd like to talk to you about today are anxiety, frustration, and sadness, which are all labeled negative in our culture. which says, do not pay attention to them. There are more women taking anti-anxiety drugs in this culture than any other drug. Anxiety is our most fundamental informational tool that lets us know that we're losing our focus. And so if you don't pay attention to that, okay, you're going to lose your focus. The focus, that's all there is. But if you pay attention to anxiety, put your attention right on the anxieties, which usually is experienced in people as butterflies in their stomach. There are all these butterflies in their stomach. So instead of taking a pill to make those go away, or doing something, going shopping and buying something, you focus your attention on those feelings, which jumpstart the superior intelligence of the body. The body is remarkable. Joseph Campbell wrote a book that said that he thinks that from the skin inward is as vast as the universe is from the skin outward. And we don't pay attention to it at all, except for the thing called the brain or the mind, whichever one. We can go into that distinction too, but right now I want to stay with the feeling. So when you pay attention to the anxiety, it jumpstarts the superior intelligence of the body. Because there is a physics principle that says all bodies in motion stay at motion, and bodies at rest stay at rest. So the body is at rest until you pay attention to the feeling. It jump starts, and then it recalibrates you right back to the present. So instead of going to the future and saying, oh my God, what if I don't get into the school, and then I'm going to be able to not be able to do what it is that I want to do, and I'm going to have to wash dishes, or whatever thought story you have created, the anxiety brings you back, and you find your tush on the seat, your feet on the floor, your computer's in front of you, and you can start creating the actions that will then lead to what you're supposed to be doing in this world, which is what is your purpose. Okay? So anxiety is a feeling that lets you know that you're losing your focus. Frustration is a feeling that lets you know that you need to make a different choice. And sadness is a feeling that you need to close the experience. It's over. The learning is already encoded on your DNA, and so why go back there in the first place? So, but if the culture tells us we're not supposed to do it, we're good doobies. We want to do what pleases people, and we don't pay attention to them. And the problem is that's a vital information to be able to stay present, because when the body performs the actions, it brings you right back to this moment. It quiets the mind. You can listen to the body, and then you become who you're supposed to be. Not who you were taught to be.
Yeah. So you did a remarkable job explaining anxiety, because we've always felt anxiety was something we don't want, right? But it's part of the human condition. It's a signal to us, a very powerful signal. So understand what the message is that anxiety is sending us. Understand that frustration is telling us something different than anxiety, that we may have been making the wrong choices, right? Yes. In that regard. So here's where I like to go is sadness. So sadness is part of, being human as well. And you're saying the culture sometimes says don't be sad, when in fact we're supposed to be sad, because it reminds us of, and talk to us a little bit about sadness, because it's such a deep understanding that each of us have experienced.
So smart to talk about that, because sadness is a feeling that closes the experience. It says this experience is over. So when you put your attention on this little amoeba-like feeling that exists right on your heart area, it brings down the parenthesis and pushes it out of the present, and the learning is encoded, and you don't have to go back. The issue, and I learned that from a very dear friend of mine who invited me to the funeral of her dad. And, funerals are all about, oh my God, everybody's crying and they're missing a person and it's terrible and all this other stuff. When she delivered her eulogy, not once, just praising and being grateful for having this man as her dad, celebrating all the different things that he did in his life, and being so grateful to have had the experience of being in relationship to a very special human being. That's the difference. The learned acknowledgement of sadness is that you go back into the past and you feel lost and it's terrible. The truth is, it is what it is. That person lived their life. They had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Hopefully they lived a long, happy life, but whatever happens, they lived as long as they were supposed to live in this world, because they're not here anymore. And what we have to do is celebrate the time we have with them, had with them, and recognize how much they taught us and how valuable they were to us, or not. You know, but sadness is a feeling that closes something. So you don't carry all your mental baggage from all of the years on your shoulders. It's so heavy. I don't understand how people can carry all of it. So, but it doesn't have to be carried.
So I have a colleague who we actually featured last week, Charlie Applestein, but I'm going to paraphrase Charlie Applestein and add a little bit of Faye Mandell to what one of the quotes he offers. He says, you can't say goodbye to you can't say hello to your future until you say goodbye to your past. Yeah. And I'm going to add the Faye Mandell twist to that and add, you cannot say hello to your present or your future until you say goodbye to your past. And that's living in the moment, and living in the moment actually prepares you for the future.
That moment creates the next moment, and that moment creates the next moment, and that's living your purpose and living your experience. Yep. So the model that I created shows people what happens when they don't pay attention to feelings. So when they don't pay attention to anxiety, frustration, or sadness, it has to get discharged. Naturally, it gets discharged through the action of paying attention to it. But if you don't pay attention to it, it creates a thought, and it puts itself on the thought like a horseback rider on a horse and gets discharged that way. So anxiety, when it creates thoughts about the future. And the way that you know that is the thoughts are about what if, or always, or ever, or will, or might. Those are future words. If you have frustration, which you don't make a different choice on, it creates thoughts which take you out of yourself and focusing on other people and things. So the words are he, she, the government, the corporations, whatever it is, that you're focused outward, okay? Which we are most of the time. So people are chronically frustrated because they're not making good choices. And sadness is the feeling that says it's over. It's close this. You be grateful for the time you had, what you learned, etc. And if you don't close it, it creates thoughts that take you into the past and are experienced as shame, guilt, or regret. So none of those have to happen.
Faye, we talked earlier before we went on live about whether or not, and I know in your seminar series and your consultations, you know, you have the time to dig deeper into these concepts and actually offer some exercises and experiences. So it's not just listening to it, but it's actually experiencing it. Is there something that you can offer us, a quick little tidbit of an exercise that allows us to experience part of what you've just shared with us?
Well, there are several. So let's take a thought, a feeling thought, because there are the creative, innovative thoughts, and then there are feelings that are thoughts that are created to discharge the feelings. So let's just take anxiety, which the feeling thought of that are future thoughts. So we could take the one that I used already, which is, what if I don't get into the school I want to get into? Or what if I don't get the job I want to get? And then I'm not going to be able to do this, and I won't be able to do that. And then I might, they might evict me from my house. And then if they evict me from my house, I'll be a bad man in New York City or wherever you are in the country. And on and on and on with the stories, okay? So the task is to use your ability to choose where to put your attention, and to choose to put your attention not on the stories that you create, but where the stories take you in time and space. So the story that we just described takes you to the future. You're in the future. What if, and all this stuff is going to happen if this happens, right? So you know you're in the future. The feeling that you didn't pay attention to was anxiety, because thoughts about the future are always created because you didn't pay attention to the anxiety and come back to the present moment. Right? So if you recognize that you look for the time-space words like will, or ever, or always, or what if is the big one. You don't even have to go past the what if, because you know you're already in the future, so that thought has no other function other than to discharge that feeling. So the content is irrelevant. Again, the problem is we're addicted to that content. So we have to know how to fight that addiction, which isn't, you just have to shift attention and you just have to practice, 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 practice. So when you shift your attention back to the feeling, then the feeling jumpstarts the superior intelligence of your body, and you're back right here with your seat on the, with your tush on the seat, your feet on the floor, you're in front of the computer, and you start doing actions that are going to move you in the direction of your purpose. Mm. It's so simple that people don't believe it. I'm coaching 3 people to learn how to teach this model. That somebody who's in the corporation wants me to, they want to have in-house trainers. And the very first thing that one of the ladies said was that, I can't believe it's so simple. I can't believe that it, you know, it's got to be complicated, because in this world, if it's not complicated, you don't really know it. But Einstein said, the more experiences we have, the less theories we need. So the point is that we really need to experience the simplicity of this model. It's very simple, because all you need to know is where you are in time and space. Then you know what feeling you need to pay attention to. You pay attention to the feeling, which jumpstarts the superior intelligence of the body, and you're done. And you're back here. Everybody knows that presence is a good thing, and being present is good.
And that process allows you to thrive. So you go from surviving to reproducing to thriving. And there is that continuum, right? That's what makes us human. We were given these gifts for a reason. We were given this DNA for a reason. Yes. Once we recognize the reasons, the answers follow.
As naturally as the sun rises every morning, you know? That's how natural it is.
Yeah. So we have probably a ton of questions that have been generated, and I'm going to turn this portion over to Kim to moderate the questions she's fielded and kind of sort them out and share them with you and I, and we'll see where this segment of our forum goes. It's always very exciting, so thank you for that. Kim?
Hi everybody. Good morning and good afternoon. Hi again, Faye. We shouted out a little bit where our people were coming from today. Almost 500 attendees joining us right now. And our friend from Greenland was on earlier. I'm not sure if he's still there, but maybe he'll chime in. So hi, Torbjorn. Nice to have you here. Not sure if any of our Canadian friends are here today, but let us know if you are. And somebody said they were coming in from Japan. Heidi did. I'm not sure if she was just trying to test me or if she's actually there, but those are some of our international people. But yes, we do have questions, so let me get to those. Katie Jones asks, says, people can get lost in their feelings. Which do you consider to be the bad feelings, those we should not embrace, those that are selfish or harmful?
Okay, so Katie, all feelings are information. The culture has deemed feelings harmful. Okay, they're not harmful. They are information from our body, which was given to us by nature to keep us in Rick's term called homeostasis. And when we are in homeostasis, we are functioning at our maximum capacity. When we don't use those feelings to create actions which allow us to stay present, they get connected to thoughts. And that is called a feeling, thought, or an emotion. Those emotions are absolutely toxic because it takes an incredible amount of energy to take a feeling, create a thought, put the feeling on the thought, discharge the feeling, create other thoughts to support that feeling. And then you look at your to-do list and you don't have any energy left because you've been creating feeling thoughts the whole day. So I would ask you to muse on the fact that it's not feelings that are bad. It's feeling thoughts that are bad and that are toxic and really usurp our energy, usurp our ability to see clearly and to make real choices.
So Faye, in terms of Katie's question, but feelings like jealousy, like envy, right? Those that we would categorize as not being healthy for us. Mm-hmm. How is that translated into a healthy message that our body's sending us?
What I'm telling you is jealousy is not a feeling. Jealousy is a feeling thought. If you look at jealousy, it's always about, and she's doing this, and she's taking my man, and my man is taking this. That's not a feeling. A feeling doesn't speak in English, but a feeling thought speaks a lot in English. And she's bad, and I'm going to fight her, and I'm going to call her, and she's a bad person because she's taking my man. That's all a thought. It's not a feeling. So what you're labeling feelings are feeling thoughts.
And there's the distinction.
That's the distinction.
There's that understanding, and there's that definitive exploration or examination of how we interpret what a feeling is to a feeling thought.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's so much with you to unpack. So bear with all of us, because it's so vast. It's like listening to Albert Einstein explain the theory of relativity. We know he's right. It's just understanding in our own terms. And you're helping us get from here to there. So thank you for that.
My absolute pleasure. I really believe that all people can be joyous and happy. They can be hopeful. They can have meaningful lives when they know the distinction between a feeling and a thought.
Kim, other questions?
Yeah, we had about 3 or 4 people asking about frustration. For you to expand on that, can you talk about the feeling of it? They don't understand how to overcome it. What action is necessary to discharge frustration?
What a wonderful group of people, because I'm sure that they're living it. So frustration is a general tension in your body. And when you put your attention on that tension, it jumpstarts the superior intelligence of the body, and it will automatically make a different choice for you. So, and of course, you're going to not believe me, but just try it. During the day, when you're frustrated and get angry, when you're angry, just go and put your attention on this tension, and the body will automatically make a different choice. Sometimes you have to help it a little bit at the beginning. So I had one client that he would never take an action. All he would do is think and think and think and think. And finally, he said, you know what I'm going to do, Faye? I'm just going to get down and do 25 push-ups. Every time I'm frustrated like that, I'm going to do 25 push-ups. And what it does is it creates a new level of opening of possibilities and potential, because your attention is not on outside of yourself, on the object of the frustration. It's self-powering you to make a different choice, to create new possibilities about how to manage and get over that frustration.
Would that be part of how you would sublimate that particular feeling and thought feeling, and sublimate it so it doesn't overwhelm you? You use that energy to do something positive.
Okay, so it's very important, because you have to understand that a feeling gets piggybacked onto a thought in a nanosecond. So when you start this process, you do reverse engineering. You start from where you gotten to get back to where you want to be. And the more you do that, the less you go out there, the more you can catch it. So the beginning is always reversal. You're going to be in a state of, by the way, frustration piggybacks onto thoughts of anger, judgments, comparisons, negations, and negative self-talk. So the people who asked the question were very astute, because it's a very powerful feeling that gets usurped by thought. So make a different choice. Put your attention on the tension in your body and see the miraculous happen.
So your client that was so frustrated could get from here to there sometimes, but then he took that energy to do push-ups.
Yes.
Was he sublimating that frustration to something positive?
No, he was making a different choice to open potentials.
I see. Yeah.
We want everything to be potential as long as it can, because in physics there's, I don't want to go into that whole part, which I love to do at some other time, but in physics things are always waves until you pay attention, and then it becomes a particle. So you want as much potential as you can live with until you have to manifest that. So.
Okay. Kim, next question. Thank you, Faye.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Faye.
Welcome.
The next question comes from Lee, and Lee asks, what strategies do you recommend that teachers or parents can employ to help their students/children reframe their thinking to listen to the language of feelings?
Brilliant question. Wonderful audience. Thank you. So the strategy is to listen to how the child is organizing the experience, not bringing the child into your world, but going into their world and experiencing how they are experiencing what's happening and reframe it for them from that place. Don't bring them into your place. You go to their place and then see how they're organizing it and then see how you can reframe it so it's a win-win for them and for you and for nature.
In your book, where children offer their perspective and adults offer their perspective, it's
Yes.
kind of being able to see it from both sides, and sometimes as the adult that we become the informer, that it's our world that we're trying to share with you rather than have your world that you're trying to share with us. And it's that sensitivity to the child's world that opens up greater possibilities to our understanding of the child, and therefore our way of helping guide the child to realizing their potential. That's quite powerful.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
Well,
Kim?
thank you.
Yes. Kat is asking, or Kat is stating that I'm assuming it's a she, has been accused of putting her head in the sand when she shifts to the present. What can she say to people?
Say that again.
She's been accused of putting her head in the sand, quote unquote, when shifting into the present. How can she respond to that?
I wouldn't connect to that person anymore. No, I'm only kidding. But what I'm saying is that person has no understanding of what it's like to be in the present. They don't understand that when you're in the present, the future and the past are all rolled up together. You're having a direct experience in which you're experiencing patterns, in which you're experiencing the innocence of what your body was meant to be, which was to take care of you and make you the best you're capable of being. That's what happens in the present moment. I don't have any idea what putting your head in the sand has to do with being present.
I think it's a misrepresentation of what the present is. And the present is where basically future and past exist with you if you're aware of it, right? The present allows you to explore the understanding of past and future, but you can't do it unless you're in the present. And that's not putting your head in the sand. That's putting your head basically in the clouds and understanding the infinite possibilities that exist.
Yes, and I want to say one thing. The English translation of the word of being present is I am. I think she is misnaming the present as I. And I think that it's I am. It's time and space. Because Einstein said that they weren't separate, they're a continuum. And so it's at the intersection of time and space in which that the I am or the present moment exists.
Yeah.
So she just has to add that other little piece.
Yeah. Kim?
Hi. So Cheryl says, could you state what the third area was and a brief explanation of it? I got anxiety and sadness, but I missed the third one.
Okay. The third one was frustration. And frustration is a feeling that says, make a different choice. Anxiety says you're losing your focus. Frustration says make a different choice, and sadness says close the experience. And all you have to do is pay attention to the bodily experience of that feeling, and the intelligence of your body will manifest what it needs to act. You get a cut on Tuesday and you look at your hand the following Sunday, is the cut still there? No. Why isn't it? The body's superior intelligence knows how to heal a cut. If it knows how to heal a cut, it also knows how to bring you back to present, if you pay attention to the feeling that jump starts that superior intelligence.
So these concepts of being in the moment, being present, I am, being in the zone are all examples or explanations of the same thing.
Yes, yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
And I think we lose track of it because we've given it so many different titles. We're not sure if we're in the moment, we're in I am, we're in the zone, but they're all actually the same. And you've defined it as the I am. and that am is the verb.
Am is the verb and I is the pronoun. Am is the verb that lets you know you're in the now, and I is a pronoun that lets you know your attention is focused from the skin inward. You know, we have been taught to focus from the skin outward, everything outward. But what has happened with the virus now, it's giving us a message. It's telling us we can't focus outward anymore because we can't go out. We have to focus in. So we have to focus in and look at where we can get value from the skin inward.
So when you look at the educational system that's beginning to pay attention to social emotional learning, right? And they've always tried to categorize the way we learn into the cognitive side and the social emotional side, when it can't be really separated, can it? It has to be the two. And when we begin to recognize that social emotional learning isn't taught separately from cognitive learning, it actually is one and the same, but in our categorical lesson planning sector system, we try to categorize math as separate from reading, reading as separate from social studies as separate from social emotional learning, when it really is all one and the same, isn't it?
Yes, and prior to that learning, you have to have confidence in yourself as a learner. You have to have people around you who affirm you and acknowledge you and let you know that you're capable of doing extraordinary things. And that is as important as teaching math or science for me. And so people tell me, hey, they should have a course in elementary school about being present. I said, they don't need to be present. They are present. We just have to stop teaching them not to be present.
Yeah. Kim? Thank you, Faye. Kim?
I've had a few different people asking about sadness specifically.
Yes.
How do we help our students through sadness when the experiences that created it were outside of school? And somebody else asked, how do you let sadness go?
You let sadness go by closing the experience, okay? Each experience has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and sadness is the feeling that lets you know that the situation is over. What our culture has taught us is that there's a certain way that sadness manifests itself, which is in mourning and in wishing that person didn't go away, or wishing that bad thing didn't happen, or whatever. And it's very late, so it's very hard for me to talk about the experience that I had. But I had a very profound experience in which I was diagnosed with cancer in 2016. And I just closed it. It had a beginning, middle, and an end. And all I focused on was gratitude for all the wonderful things that happened in my life. And then I focused on how I'm going to fight this and how I'm going to stay healthy and how I'm going to use things to shore up my immune system. And it's 4 years later, I've never felt better in my entire life.
Yep.
So,
Faye, let's close this segment with, you shared with us some of those things of what you need to be in the moment, and you had a list of those.
That's the drivers.
Yes, the drivers. Could you share those with us as kind of helping to summarize so much of what we explored today? And then we have an announcement because Faye's going to give us some gifts, and we'll talk about who's going to receive her gifts. So let's go with those drivers and then talk about the gifts.
Okay. So when you're in the present moment, you're driven by 7 drivers, and they are service, compassion, integrity, accountability, courage, gratitude, and kindness. So those are what drive your behavior from the present moment, one or a series of them. And when you're driven by those, you're living your purpose. Whatever your purpose is at that moment in the experience of linear time.
And we would call that's who you need to be.
Yes.
And we talked earlier about our mutual friend Ron Rosbrook, who says, who are you being when you're doing, right? And then we say, well, often we default to the to-do list and we forget about the to-be list.
Yes.
And you just given us the 7 drivers that have to be part of our to-be list.
Yes.
So don't ignore the to-do list. You got to get on with, the work of life. but don't forget the to be list, because you have to get on with the work of potential.
Well, you do your work through those drivers.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, when they intersect and they become one and the same, then your to do and to be is one and the same. That's beautiful. So Faye, tell us the books that you're going to gift to us, and we'll tell the people who may be receiving that gift from you what they're going to be receiving.
So I'd like to give 20 books of the children's book for parents away to anybody who might want, well, to who we're considering a structure to, and 20 books of the GPS to self-powerment.
So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our registration list, and we think this is the fairest way of doing it. We're going to look at our registration list, and the first 20 that registered will receive one of those 2 books, and you will let us know, because we'll write to you and we'll ask you which of those 2 books you want, and then we'll make the other ones available as well. So if you were part of the first 20, you'll get a choice of whether you want the GPS book or the children's book, and we'll send that information to Faye. If you want more information about Faye, some of her seminars and webinars or things that she does to further dive deeper into this remarkable model that she's created and the practices associated with it, her website is beingpresent.com. Yeah, being-present.com. If you Google beingpresent.com, it should come up. I think that's what I've done.
Oh, really?
Or if you Google Dr. Faye Mandell, it will lead you there. So there's lots of ways to find her, but being-present.com is the quickest way. But she's not. Let me tell you, she's not hard to find on the World Wide Web. And with that, Faye, you know, we want to thank you for the generous time and insights that you offered us. We thank you for I always say, the collective bottom of our hearts, and those are our feelings, and we're paying attention to that. And in return for those feelings, we feel gratitude, and we think that's a driver of our human experience as well. Mm-hmm. So to each and every one of you out there who participated in this whole forum, thank you as well. Next week, we're going to feature Dr. Valerie Calderon, who's a researcher with the Gallup poll. They've been studying hope and engagement in students across the country for 10 years. We're sure she has some remarkable insights and some opportunities to think about additional strategies based on the research she's done. And so we look forward to have you join us next week as well. And again, Faye and Kim, thank you for your participation. And with that, have a wonderful, hopeful day.
Thank you.